أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الذين قالوا لإخوانهم وقعدوا الذين قالوا لإخوانهم وقعدوا لو أطاعونا ما قتلوا قل فادرءوا عن أنفسكم الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولا تحسبن الذين قتلوا في سبيل الله أمواتا بل أحياء عند ربهم يرزقون فرحين بما آتاهم الله من فضله ويستبشرون بالذين لم يلحقوا بهم من خلفهم ألا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. يستبشرون بنعمة من الله وفضل وأن الله لا يضيع أجر المؤمنين. الذين استجابوا لله والرسول من بعد ما أصابهم القرح للذين أحسنوا منهم واتقوا أجر عظيم. الذين قال لهم الناس إن الناس قد جمعوا لكم فاخشوهم فزادهم إيمانا وقالوا حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل. لا إله إلا الله. فانقلبوا بنعمة من الله وفضل لم يمسسهم سوء واتبعوا رضوان الله والله ذو فضل عظيم. إن إنما ذلكم الشيطان يخوف أولياءه فلا تخافوهم وخافون إن كنتم مؤمنين ولا يحزنك الذين يسارعون في الكفر إنهم لن يضروا الله شيئا يريد الله ألا يجعل لهم حظا في الآخرة ولهم عذاب عظيم. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على رسول الله وآله الأطهار على رسول الله وآله الأطهار. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear brothers, how are you, and listeners? Alhamdulillah, I congratulate everyone today for the birth of Imam Ali ibn Musa Al-Ridha alayhi salam. The ayat that was read were very interesting. If I have a minute to just talk about what I read. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The people who told their brothers and they sat back from defending the Islam, their people, their country, their town. And they sat back and they told their brothers, if they would have listened to us, they would have not been killed. So they're attacking the fact that these people are even going to defend their villages, their religion, their belief. Because they want to, at that time, they wanted to wipe out all the Muslims completely, take them out of their roots. God tells them to say, O Prophet, say, push away death from yourself if you can, and if you are true, if you're saying the truth. And then God says, don't think and don't calculate that those people who were killed for the cause of God are dead. They are alive with their Lord, and they are given what they are wishing for, part of what they're wishing for. They are happy, farihin, of what God has given them from His mercy, min fadlih, from His rizq. And they are awaiting, happily awaiting the people who haven't came to them yet. And they, as if they are telling them, don't be scared, and they will not be sad. So the people that are told in history to be scared from the people, they told them be scared of the people, because the people are ganging up on you. They are doing a plan against you. So be scared of the people. So they want to cause them, strike them with fear. That increased these believers, their belief in God, and they said, God is our belief, God is our defender, and He will take care of us. And they returned with a mercy from their Lord, and no harm touched them. لَمْ يَمْسَسْهُمْ سُوءٌ. They followed the happy, what God is happy for them to follow. And the interesting thing, so this comes at the end of this whole story, comes, that is the Satan. إِنَّمَا ذَلِكُمُ الشَّيْطَانِ يُخَوَّفُ أَوْلِيَاءَهُ فَلَا تَخَافُوهُم. وَخَافُونَ إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. That is the Satan. He scares his own followers. So there is people who are followers of the Satan. We are not. He cannot scare us. But he scares his own followers, أولياءه. And God is telling us not to fear them and to fear God if we were believers. Now, in the time of the Imam, for example, Imam Ali alayhi salam, when the Khulafa came to Fatima al-Zahra and told her, we are planning to burn your house. If you guys don't accept, we're going to kill you. Fatima al-Zahra would go outside and scream to all the people that not just a simple man came. No, the guy who has the control of all the armies. And she said, I swear to God, he will do it. So she did not fear them. She feared God. And this means the believers who stood with Ahlul Bayt, especially at those difficult times, are not much. So God is saying, if you were believers, then do not be scared of the Satan and his awliya, but from God. So that means not just a normal believer, a believer who's believer to the core, who is a serious believer in God. Even these hardships and difficult times is not going to affect him. His belief is going to stand strong. And thank you for listening. And آخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. And صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا حبيبنا وحبيب إله العالمين خاتم النبيين جد الحسن والحسين أبي القاسم محمد. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المكرمين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. ولعنة الله على الأعدائهم أجمعين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم: ولا تحسبن الذين قتلوا في سبيل الله أمواتا بل أحياء عند ربهم يرزقون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First and foremost, congratulations to each and every single one of you for being gathered here on this blessed, joyous occasion where we celebrate the birth of our dear and beloved 8th Imam of the Ahlul Bayt, Ali ibn Musa Al-Ridha. May the peace and blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be upon him. As Brother Sa'eed recited so beautifully, those who are killed in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, surely they are not dead. They are receiving sustenance from their Lord. And their examples, their lifestyles, their guidelines, they live with us today. They are the core of everything that we believe in and should be the beacon by which we live our lifestyle, the example that we follow. Now, inshallah, I'll just begin with a very brief biography of Imam Ali ibn Musa Al-Ridha before we move on. So this is going to be a panel discussion, of course, and after the discussion, we'll have a question answer session as well. Inshallah, we'll keep it short and sweet. So, Imam Musa Al-Kadhim, peace and blessings be upon him, our 7th Imam, he marries a North African freed woman by the name of Najma Khatun Salamullahu Alayha. And through her, he is gifted this blessed child, Imam Ali ibn Musa Al-Ridha. Now, Imam Musa Al-Kadhim, peace and blessings be upon him, of all of the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt, other than Imam Al-Hussain alayhi salam, his story is probably the most tragic and heartbreaking all of the years he spent languishing in the dungeons, starving, suffering. Now, years later, after he is killed, Ma'mun is the Khalifa. He is the successor of Muhammad al-Amin, the son of Harun al-Rashid. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala curse the Abbasid caliphs, the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt. Harun al-Rashid, the killer of Imam Musa al-Qadim alayhi salam, and Ma'mun, his son as well. Ma'mun came into power by killing his brother Muhammad al-Amin, his predecessor. And because of this, he was despised by the people. In order to prevent an uprising from taking place, what does he do? He forces Imam Ali ibn Musa Al-Ridha, a person who is loved by the masses because of his knowledge, his wisdom that he imparts to the people, because of his acts of charity for the poor, for the travelers, for the widows, for everyone in need. He is loved amongst the masses, and people from across the world come to visit him in Medina. Now, Ma'mun forces him from Medina to Khurasan, where he eventually nominates him as his successor. What is the purpose of this? It's something that we call in the English language tokenism, and inshallah we'll focus on this further as we progress into the night. Tokenism is essentially an action done that is not genuine or sincere, but it is typically performed by an unjust ruler, an illegitimate ruler, in order to legitimize his leadership. And we see this taking place across generation after generation. We see this taking place today as well. Inshallah, we'll focus on that more afterwards. Imam Ali Al-Ridha, peace and blessings be upon him, he continued to uphold Islam, the principles of the religion, even as he spent his time amongst foreigners, away from his family, longing for their presence, heartbroken and in grief at their absence. If we can please close that door. Now, Imam Ali Al-Ridha alayhi salatu wassalam, he would, during the dark hours of the night, he would give alms to the poor and the needy. And this was reflective of his great ancestor and his namesake, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. We have heard of the stories in Kufa. After the passing of Imam Ali alayhi salam, the poor, the children, the orphans, they would ask, where is that man who used to give us a means to live, a means to satiate ourselves when we were starving during the darkest hours of the night? So inshallah, that's just a brief biography, and we'll move on to the panel discussion. Inshallah, we'll raise a number of points with the panelists. So first and foremost is the etiquette of Imam Ali Al-Ridha alayhi salatu wasalam. This is something of key importance. Imam Ali Al-Ridha never interrupted anyone when he engaged in debate with them. He never spoke loudly. And this is also a parallel to Imam Al-Hasan alayhi salatu wasalam, another ancestor of our beloved Imam. Imam Al-Hasan, of course, we've heard the story of the Syrian man who was abusing him, who was loud towards him, who was aggressive. And Imam Al-Hasan paused, he let him finish, and then he offered to satiate him if he was hungry, to give him shelter if he needed shelter, etc. And ultimately, that Syrian man became his follower. Now, Ma'mun al-Rashid tried his best to delegitimize Imam Ali Al-Ridha, and he did this by gathering the best scholars across the world in order to debate him, in order to try and trap him in some kind of intellectual bind that he couldn't escape from. But this didn't work. Imam Al-Ridha alayhi salatu wasalam, he was polite, he was kind, he let the person finish, he never interrupted, and he even responded to them in the same language that they spoke. So whether it was Roman, Hindi, Turkish, Persian, many different languages, he would respond to them in their own tongue. And his companion Abu Salt al-Hiwari, he asked him the question that how is this possible? How are you able to speak in all these different languages? And Imam Ali Al-Ridha says, Ana hujjatullahi ala al-khalq. I am the proof of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this world, and Allah does not give a proof who does not speak the languages of his people. Now, The first question I'd like to ask to our dear brothers, and first I'd like to invite brother Mustafa Bismi, followed by our dear brother Sa'eed, inshallah. If you can both come, inshallah, please, most welcome. The question is, what can we learn from Imam Al-Ridha alayhi salam and from the other Imams in general, as far as engaging in debate, as far as being able to have a strong background of knowledge whereby we can respond comprehensively and at the same time retaining our manners, our politeness, no matter how aggressive or belligerent the other side may be. Inshallah, Brother Mustafa.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. The topic about, how we should engage respectfully in debate, right? This is an interesting topic because I remember when I was a kid, I used to read Peshawar Nights. And if those of you who don't know, Peshawar Nights was essentially a discussion between senior Sunni sheikhs and senior Shia sheikhs, right? And all these questions were about the validity of Shia Islam within Ahl Sunnah books, right? But what's really interesting in the book, they refer to the Shia sheikh as the well-wisher and the Sunni sheikh as a hafiz. And if you read it, it's not just arguments, it's also a conversation, right? Now this book, I'm not too sure, I think Hussein's got better knowledge about this. I think it was over 100 years ago that it took place, and it was over several different nights. But what's interesting is the etiquette that they had, right? This etiquette over the years has decreased between Shia-Sunni dialogue, right? And if you were to look at modern day Shia-Sunni discourse, thank you, brother, thank you. There's a lot of, it's more so about defending your beliefs and education, right? I don't know if you guys have seen, there's like a lot of debates people have in London Park. There's a big, have you guys seen that, right? The Muhammad hijabs and this, that. It's more like loud-mouthing one perspective over another, more so than it is educating each other. And in those kind of situations, it's better not to engage. There's a hadith where Imam Ali Al-Mu'mineen talks about, do not debate with someone unless he's fair. Unless the person you're debating is the kind of person that would say, you know what, that makes sense. You're right on that topic. You know what, I wasn't probably the most accurate on that piece when I was talking about. Unless someone is fair in debate, don't engage in debate with them. We're not here to necessarily defend ourselves on every little aspect. As Shia Muslims, we're not necessarily here to, there's many times where the Imams did not respond to people when they asked questions. There's many times when the Imams didn't even respond to their own Shia. They said, leave this topic. Even in Hadith, you can see the Imam says, leave this topic 3 times until he responds. You don't always have to respond. It's more important to assess whether the person is there to learn or whether the person is there to slander. I don't know if you've noticed this, but during Ramadan, the holy month of Ramadan, there's been lectures going around about discussing the Shia-Sunni topics. Why do Shias not pray Taraweeh prayer, for example? Amar Naqshbandi, for example, right? Now, these sort of debates and discussions has caused some sort of like bit of a heated controversy within the Shias. Some scholars say that this can cause more harm than good, right? In our books, we have the answers to show the real character of the Prophet's Sahaba, right? By just divulging that, does that bring a net positive? Do you get what I'm saying? And so some people out of their own sort of like pride, they'll say, let me prove to you why your belief is wrong. That mentality is not a mentality of education. It's a mentality to show superiority, right? And that's something that inherently brings about disunity. When other Muslims try to critique Shia Islam, they're not there to bring unity. When they say, the Shias, they worship Imam Ali, they this bad about the turban, they're not there to educate anybody or this, that. They're more so to show superiority and belittle one party over another. In that essence, there's no net benefit from the Muslim Ummah. Imam Khomeini famously said, while we're debating about whether to fold our hands or keep our hands by our sides. You know, in Salat, the Shias, we put our hands by our sides. Other Muslims, they fold their hands. You know, the Marajas, the Faqihs in both sides have been debating this in ijtihad for God knows how long. Meanwhile, the enemies in America and in Israel, they want to see your hands blown off. You know what I mean? And we're the idiots at the end of the day still debating about this. We're both praying to God, just debating about some minor insignificance. There's one degree of understanding about the religion where it's sort of like understanding the correct chain of narrations to prove who's more correct than the other, right? Even within our own fuqaha system, there's different varying chains of narrations which some marajas take certain fiqh rulings over the other. Forget between Shias and Sunnis, even within our own fiqh, there's a degree of discrepancy. And even within Shias, there's a whole debate about, you know, this is my maraj, this is not your maraj. We celebrate Eid on this day. It's such a big thing. It doesn't make any sense. And then the higher degree of wisdom is realizing that's not really important. What's more important is to unite amongst Muslims. Any slight degree of differences, if it causes disunity, it kind of defeats the whole purpose of a Muslim ummah. Do you know what I'm saying? And so that perspective of don't engage in debate unless it is, number one, with etiquette. Number two, is it compromising Shia-Sunni unity? Is it compromising Muslim unity? That holds precedence over just examining the topic. Do you know what I'm saying? The reason why I'm saying this is because it wasn't until I researched into what is taqiyya into Islam that I understand the importance of concealing information and revealing information. When I was a kid, I used to think taqiyya was sort of like, you know, when someone has a gun to your head, do you tell them you're a Shia or something? That's what I used to think taqiyya was. It's not like that at all.
I think it's partly like that.
That's the most extreme aspect.
Yes.
Majority of taqiyya is not like that. Majority of taqiyya is a passive existence, in the sense that the Ahlul Bayt have explained when the Shi'as, Ma'mun is a great example. Ma'mun with Imam Al-Ridha and Imam Musa Al-Qadim, it was a great example because the Shi'as, they would want to show their pride about their Shia beliefs, and they would divulge to the Muslim community, non-Shia community, what Imam Musa al-Qadim's opinion was on Ma'mun, what Imam Ridha had to say about the Khalifa at his time. They would do that out of pride. In fact, you will notice the same debates that we have, Shia-Sunni debates, we're doing it out of pride. Oh, you want me to show you who your Khulafa Rashidin, let me show you who they really were. That's out of pride. It's not out of education. Right? Those Shias at the time were condemned by the Ahlul Bayt. The Imam said, indeed, we have told you these things in private matters. And when we refer to them, we refer to their name as so and so, with the indication that both the two parties, the Imam and the companion, knew who the Imam was talking about. And that companion went out and divulged what the Imam said in private and implied who that name was, publicly announced it. The Imams have condemned those people. So when I wanted to look into what is taqiyya, the Imams examined the concept of the secrets of the Imam. And the secrets of the Imam is anything which, when divulged, puts the risk of the Shias, their lives at risk. Right? And when you divulge it, it doesn't matter what the topic is. For example, slandering Ma'mun at the time of Ma'mun will get you killed. In present day, nobody's going to defend Ma'mun. Nobody cares about the Rashidun, the Umayyad, later on Caliphs. Nobody talks about them so much as the first four Caliphs. Right? Back then is different. Back then it'll get you killed. Today it's a different atmosphere. Whatever puts the Shias' lives at risk and compromises the security of the Ummah becomes a secret of the Ahlul Bayt. There are particular things that are not to be divulged in that presence. In fact, if you look at the Al-Marajas, they have specifically put a lot of emphasis on making it haram to publicly slander these revered figures. A lot of people have come out and protest. I know this because I'm an Indian Pakistani. In India and Pakistan, it's a very strong thing to tabarra. Publicly doing tabarra is a very, big part of the faith. Right? You know about this, right? Then they do it because it's a pride thing. I'm proud to be Shia. See, look, I'll stand him. I don't care about your feelings. I'm proud to do that. Our Grand Maharajas have said not to do that. And our Grand Maharajas are not saying that out of their own whims. They're saying this from the advice of the Ahlul Bayt. Do you get that? That's sort of like balancing what you reveal and what you discuss in terms of Islamic faith. You can't just go about stomping your feet on these topics, is what I'm trying to tell you. You have to play it very smart. A lot of people engaging in these debates aren't playing it very smart. They don't mind who they offend. And what happens is some guy saying something in Pakistan or in London gets a Afghani mosque blown up because Shias are perceived in a particular light. We have seen deliberately a rise of Hazaras being targeted as a result of particular information released on the internet about Shia perspectives. And the reason why this is really important is because we have a hadith that talk about before the return of the Al-Qa'im al-Muntadhar, before the return of the 12th Imam, taqiyya will become close to impossible. Concealing your faith will be extremely difficult. There's so many hadith about that. Why is that? How can it be extremely difficult? Probably because all of your beliefs are out in the open. Do you know what I mean? The internet, exactly. And we're publicizing our secret beliefs. Most Muslims don't know the secret beliefs of Shias. We're publicizing, thank you, bro. We're publicizing it out in the open. And so when it comes to these etiquettes of debate and discussion, we need to know how to play it smart. And with that being said, I'd like to pass it on. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Jazakallah khair, dear brother Mustafa. Beautifully said. And that detail on taqiyya and its finer nuances, inshallah, that's something I'm hoping to research into as well. I guess it's all about strategizing, picking your battles in the right way. For example, if you're talking to someone who's hardcore pro-Israeli, you can't jump into the most, for example, there's an incident in 1967 where an Israeli warplane attacked a US ship and killed 34 US sailors, the USS Liberty. If you dump that kind of hard truth onto let's say you have a pro-Zionist colleague in your workplace or something, if you immediately jump to that critique right away, they're going to dismiss everything you say. They might not even believe you. Whereas if you take it slowly and strategically, it works out better. So Jazakallah khair once again. And same question to you, Brother Sa'eed, inshallah. Feel welcome to respond. So the idea is that when we engage in debate, how do we maintain our etiquette? And this is not necessarily to try and win converts like Brother Mustafa was saying, trying to proselytize and prove our position is superior. It's more about, I guess, giving the right kind of example whereby others can see through our actions and behavior that this is what the Ahlul Bayt truly represent. This is what they truly reflect, and thereby getting a better image of the religion, spreading a better image of the religion, and clearing up misconceptions potentially.
Thank you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Now, I'm not the most prepared one out of the three of us, but I'll try my best. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Regarding the topic of etiquette of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, the topic of taqiyya, Brother Mustafa Bismi brought up, is very related, don't you think? Yes. As he was speaking, I was thinking about these examples. As you said, there is things that we shouldn't be talking about because it's like talking to a primary student about secondary and university level. You have to take it slow. Everyone that I know uses that, especially the enemies, especially Satan. So the Satan is not going to jump in and say, do the most worst thing. The Satan, the Quran says, he orders, because he mutakabbir, he sees he's better than all the humans. He orders them to do the wrong, to do the fahisha. Whereas to us, the Satan says, please, he's like, he begs us, beseeches us, please do the littlest thing. He's not going to even jump. If he jumps, we never accept. So he goes slowly, gradually. When he pulls a human slowly, gradually to the bad, as they say, they drink, they go to the bar, and then they will think about something bad. So when he pulls them so much until he can order them. But for us, he wishes, he wants us. Thank you. So taqiyya, yes, in everything there has to be levels. So if somebody tells you, you Shia, for example, I was talking to someone who I would call a friend. He's a Wahhabi. He thinks God is there, and they heard of a lot of these things. So with him, I have to use taqiyya. He's in Australia, but still, he would say, you Shias, the very strict ones, and this is a real example. You guys, the very strict of you, I know you're not, but they pray to the Imam Ali and Imam Hussain. I told him, I am the strictest type there is, and most of us are like this, and we don't do that. Those are the lost ones. Those are, yes, like you could find them somewhere around the world where they were forgotten, and their inheritance was forgotten. We feel sad for them. We don't feel like they're really bad.
I think they call it ghulu, I believe. Yeah. So it's and all over our scriptures, the works of our fuqaha, they strongly condemn ghulu. It's the action of worshipping or deifying the imams. Yeah.
Yes, that's their own scholars. Do ghulu, for example, worship us, through us you get your gifts. Everything you have is through us. So that's no, our scholars can. But some people got lost along the way. He would also say, things like that, and I wouldn't go ahead and straight ahead with him. No, slowly, taqiyya, gradually, level by level. So that's because he's so charged up against Shias. So yeah, that akhlaq is absolutely required. The thing that's going on nowadays and has been for a long time, it's called farriq tasud. It is found in the books of the Torah and Bani Israel. The Israelis. Divide, and you will become above. How? Because over time, after you divide the people, they become weaker. I'm sure you've seen, there's examples that, the strongest one thought the weakest one is not strong, or of their own team, or the smallest blame on them, and then the weaker, until he remained alone, and then he lost. There's those examples like that. I remember. So they have this rule. This means we have to be careful from being divided, especially Sunni Shia and all the good youth around the world. They want the truth. They want to stand with the truth very strongly. So yes, we have to have that heart. I was talking to a Christian yesterday, and he said, I'm Fijian Indian, and he said, the Muslims, yes, and in Fiji, there is few, but there is mosques everywhere. But the Shias are the bad ones. They're the ones who do this and this. And the end of the conversation, he loved Shias, by the way, after I talked to him. So, and he said, and the Hindu, people who follow the Hindu religion, we just laugh at them. I told him, why would you laugh at them? They're our surgeons in the hospital. We go to them. They're our family doctors. You feel sad for them. He's smart, and then you go see him. He prays to the cow. You feel sad for this guy. You come take his hand, talk to him. He understands. No one has come to these people to talk to them from their own books. They have books of the prophets that's been used to control them using figures. Do I have a bit of more time? Yeah. I think I've spoken too much. Very specifically to the Imams, an example which would look anti-taqiyya, like not hiding anything, where it's required. Imam Al-Ridha alayhi salam had to go through it, and similar to his father, Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The Abbasi Khalifa, he came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam to his grave, and he said, Assalamu alayka ya ibn al-am. Assalamu alayka Rasulullah. My uncle is my grandfather is your uncle. We're the children of Abbas, your uncle. So we are so close to you. He wants to show the people, I am the Khalifa and I have a reason to be the Khalifa because I am the son of the uncle. And the uncle, he says in his logic, gets the inheritance, not the daughter of the Prophet. No, the women don't. The uncle, the man does. And then approaches Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam on purpose in front of everyone to remove this fitna. He says, Assalamu alayka ya Aba. Assalamu alaykum, O father. He told him, he's going against the Khalifa, and he told him, how would you say he's your father? Why would you say that? And Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam told him, it is because, and this is the reason why he had to go to 14 to 18 years of prison. This is it. Where he didn't have to hide it, he had to show it. He told him, if Rasulullah now, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, came out of death, out of the grave, and he wanted to ask the hand of your daughter, would you give him? He said, yes, and I'll be proud, that Khalifa. And Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam said, but I wouldn't. He said, why wouldn't you? He said, because he is my grandfather. He directly is through Fatima Zahra, my grandfather. I cannot. So I'm closer to him. And that is the reason why it pulled him, because he saw him as a threat. He's breaking the actual foundations. All his life, that Khalifa Al-Abbasi was trying to show that he is closer. He is the one who gets inheritance, because there is rumors going on. When it came to Imam Al-Ridha alayhi salam, similarly, the Ma'mun brought up all those knowledgeable people. And if Imam Al-Ridha hadn't answered, the Ma'mun wouldn't be scared of him. It is because he saw, actually, no, he is the most knowledgeable one of that time, and everyone believes in him. And no matter what he does, even though he brought him to block him from spreading Islam, he's not going to be able to do rumors or spreading. Whereas, and after the death of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, Imam Ali Sajjad, and the Imams, for example, Imam Sadiq, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, they were spreading Islam very quickly. Yes. But then Imam Musa al-Kadhim was taken, so he doesn't. And then Imam Al-Ridha was trying to block him. And at the end, of course, they did that. I think I talked enough.
Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Thank you, Brother Sa'eed. Jazakallah. I do recall the incident you were mentioning. So Harun al-Rashid was essentially trying to prove that he has greater legitimacy because he's related to the Holy Prophet through the father's side, whereas Imam Musa al-Kadhim is related to the mother's side. Here's what I've always found so stupid about that argument. Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam is related to the Holy Prophet through both the father's side and the mother's side. So that's one thing. And of course, as you mentioned, Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salatu wasalam proved his legitimacy. Even through, he mentioned a verse in the Quran about Isa alayhi salatu wasalam being the son of Maryam salamullahu alayha. And through that verse, he proved his own legitimacy far greater than Harun al-Rashid la'natullah alayh. So yeah, most definitely, knowledge is the greatest threat to tyranny and oppression. And we see that today, brothers. That's why they're killing the journalists in the Gaza Strip. More journalists killed in the Gaza Strip than any war in history. Because knowledge is the biggest threat to these people, these tyrants, these oppressors. Yazid tried to kill Imam al-Hussein for the very same. The Imams of the Ahlul Bayt are the beacon of knowledge. Any truth that is purveyed, it threatens the position of the oppressors. Now, inshallah ta'ala, with that said, we'll move to our final point of discussion. So as we mentioned, the word tokenism, we see that happening today in our day and age as well. So Ma'mun, by taking Imam Al-Ridha alayhi salam from Medina to Khurasan, by eventually nominating him as his successor, these are not genuine or sincere actions. These are just the means by which he can show his legitimacy to the people. And ultimately, he undermines all of that as well by assassinating Imam Al-Ridha alayhi salatu wassalam. Now this action, tokenism, as I mentioned, it takes place today as well. There's I can go over hundreds of examples, but I'll just mention one. There's a politician in America from the US House of Representatives, Andrew Ogles. May Allah's curse be upon him. I'm just going to say it. He was asked about the people in the Gaza Strip being killed, the children being killed in the Gaza Strip by, there's an organization you might have heard of, Brother Mustafa. It's called Code Pink. Yeah, you haven't heard? There's a Jewish lady by the name of Medea Benjamin. So they go around protesting politicians across the US. She's a Jewish woman, by the way. They demand that they make a motion in the Senate and Congress and all these different political bodies to stop the funding of US weapons to Israel. They go around everywhere making life a living hell for US politicians, essentially. They're very good videos. I'd encourage you both to watch them, inshallah. Just look up Code Pink on YouTube. Find some incredible videos there. Anyway, so they approached this US representative, Andrew Ogles. They ask him, what about all the children being killed in Gaza? And this man, he says, I think we should kill them all. And then you look at his Instagram page, some of his posts, he has pictures of Martin Luther King. Now, what better example of tokenism is there than that? And you see this being done across respected and revered figures across the place. People that are tyrants and oppressors, US presidents, these Western hegemonic leaders, however you want to put it, they invoke the names of people like Nelson Mandela, people like Martin Luther King, people like Malcolm X, for example, Hajj Malcolm, may Allah's blessings be upon him, may Allah's mercy be upon him. And that's a parallel with Ma'mun al-Rashid, la'natullah alayhi. So just wanted to make that point first and foremost. As we mentioned, Imam Al-Ridha alayhi salam spent his life amongst foreigners, amongst strangers. There's a bit of a parallel today as well. In the Gaza Strip, we mentioned the journalists, the doctors. A lot of those people, they don't have to be there necessarily. They're amongst strangers. You know, they're spending their time amongst strangers and they're risking their own lives, but they feel compelled to do so in order to do what little they can to make life easier for the people suffering under this bombardment, under this open genocide. Now, there was one doctor in Belmore Park last Sunday. Brother Sajjad was there with me. A doctor who spent 2 weeks in the Gaza Strip. He was describing his experiences and it was pretty remarkable. He was talking about how the vast majority of people, if they were under those same circumstances, constantly being bombed, constantly being under gunfire, constantly being under tank fire, etc., etc. Because remember, Gaza Strip is attacked from the navy, from the sea, from the air, and the land. This is just attacked from every direction in every way possible. Life is a living hell for the people there. Now, he said most people in those circumstances, they would only be looking out for themselves. I only care about myself. I want to save my own life. Whereas people in the Gaza Strip, this was very heartfelt, very touching. He said people in the Gaza Strip, they were all looking out for each other. They had such a strong sense of, how would you put it, camaraderie, solidarity. They were together with each other. They were all in it for each other, not for themselves, not for oneself, but for each other. He said this spirit, he couldn't think of anywhere else where he would find something like this. He said if he were in that position, he would probably be looking out for himself. So, last question is to my dear brothers. What does it say when people that are under an open genocide and bombardment, they're so united and together with one another, whereas us, many times we're living under the safety and comfort of a place like Australia. As Brother Mustafa said and Brother Sa'eed, we're often divided amongst sectarian lines or any other lines. What does it say when we're not facing those same kinds of struggles and yet we're divided, whereas those guys, they're facing the most horrific challenges and yet they're united together? And the other question is, does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala place these trials and tribulations onto people so that they may realize what's truly important in life? I feel the answer to that is yes. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does do so. But of course, Allahu alam. Allah knows best. Inshallah, I'll pass it on to my dear brother Mustafa.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The topic of tokenism is a very interesting topic. I was reading into, for example, how Biden and the current Democratic Party is getting pressured by young voters in his support of Israel.
Yes.
Right? Big time. And this is something he doesn't want to have, looming on the back of his mind when election day comes up, because the supporters know, the left-wing supporters know that they're not going to support Trump. Trump is unapologetic in his support for Israel, but they don't want to support Biden, who will support Israel, from the backhand, right? The interesting thing about tokenism here is Biden is the kind of person to provide humanitarian aid as more of a PR position for the Democratic Party. Meaning, to get the support of left-wing people, he'll provide humanitarian aid. He might say, it's not good to kill the civilians. You know what I mean? And then he'll send arms to Israel with the other hand. The reason why he does that is not because he really cares what's going on. He does that because he doesn't want to face internal pressures from his own country. That's an aspect of tokenism. Another aspect of tokenism is in Saudi Arabia. What Saudi Arabia is currently doing is called sports washing. I don't know if you've heard of this. Talib, have you heard of this? Sports washing? They pump in a lot of money into sports. I'm talking a lot of money into Formula One, into golf, into boxing, into MMA.
Yeah,
all of the UFC fights are in Saudi, yeah?
Speaking of Mustafa, even tomorrow there's a first fight between two heavyweight champions, Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying first fight. This is just a unrelated point, but first fight in Saudi Arabia. All the big fights you'll see there, so 100%.
And they're pumping like a crazy amount of money in there. You know why? It's because there's a saying, give them bread and give them circuses. This is an old Roman saying, to distract the minds of the public, is to sort of distract them with this sort of like entertainment. So you can get away, you can sort of like whitewash your crimes by doing this, right? And so what's interesting is, even in the Muslim world, if you ask non-Shia Muslims, what are the Arab leaders doing when it comes to Palestine, they have to sort of change the topic a little bit. They have to say, we got to pray for Palestine. They don't want to focus it on a Muslim political responsibility, because then they get uncomfortable all of a sudden. They feel like there's no, wait a minute, who is supporting the Palestinians? Yeah. Is it Saudi? Is it UAE? Look at what recently they had, the Abrahamic Accords, which is Israel pledging allegiance with a lot of the Arab Gulf countries, and mainly in opposition for Iran, and with an alliance with Israel. If you look at recently, Turkey just cut off a little bit of trade deals with Israel, but that's just recently.
Yeah, brother. The real question is, like, if they're cutting out trade deals now at this point, it means, were they really having trade deals with them for the last 7 months? That's the real question that people should ask.
Exactly. And the truth is, these Gulf countries, they don't want their citizens to be restless. If you look at Saudi Arabia, they have a huge growing under 30 population, and those people are typically those who are critical of the government. If you look at even the Gaza issue right now, most people who are talking about this are people under the age of 30, and they're typically, they range from different religions. This Gaza issue is not like it's ever been before. Before, it used to be only Muslims and Arabs talking about Gaza. Yeah. Now it's like, through the rise of TikTok, strangely enough, TikTok has blown this way out of proportion, where people you would never expect before are talking about, people are pushing pressure on celebrities at a huge scale. Tens of millions of people. I never thought I would see the day. Personally, I didn't think humanity had it in them to care about some small Gaza in the middle of the Middle East. I didn't think people in America and in Britain would care so much about that. I remember when we went to the protests in like 2008, I thought I'd only see me and Hussein down there. You know what I mean? I didn't think I would see a white guy down there, and like a whole bunch of guys from. I didn't ever thought of that. I thought he didn't care, because it's not an immediate threat to his problem. But the world is changing. Thank God the internet played a good part in that. Right? Our parents said like, "Oh, we're always on our phones or something." That made a huge difference. You know what I mean? But the tokenism is a really interesting aspect. The changing and the misdirection of attention from people in power. If you look at what Iran did, we just saw what Iran did with Israel. The Muslim world, they were like panicking. Why is Iran the only person doing anything about Israel, number one? And why was the UAE countries shooting those drones down? Which side are they on?
Jordan was shooting.
Jordan, even UAE, they alerted beforehand of those missiles coming in. Which side are they on? And the people in those countries don't represent those governments, right? And so there's a rise of civil unrest as a result. And what's interesting is people change the conversation really quickly. You'll notice the Shia countries is very particularly Shia countries. You got Iran, you got Lebanon, South Lebanon, you got Syria, you got Yemen. They're all Iraq, you got the Islamic resistance all supporting Palestine. All the Sunni countries are not. And so before this topic, it was like, oh, Shias are not Muslim, we're not part of them. And then you find out that the Shias are the only ones doing anything. Oh, brother, there's no Shia Sunni, there's only Muslim. There's something within a lot of Muslims, they don't want to give credit to both Iran and Shias. And this is one other thing. I've been debating with non-Shia Muslims my whole life. My family's half Shia, half Sunni. And one thing I realized, it's not about, Imam Ali is not about, it's not like a mathematical equation where it's like, oh, that's the answer? Oh, okay, I get it. There's hypocrisy in the hearts of people that they don't want to accept some degree of Shia Islam and the Ahlul Bayt. And the Imams have explained that. They said that people won't outright say, I hate the Ahlul Bayt. The Imams have told us this. They won't say, oh, I hate Imam Ali. Nobody says that. Not even the Takfiris, not even the ISIS people, they'll never say that. But the Imams have said they will show their hate towards us through their hate for our Shia. There's animosity in the hearts of these Muslims when it comes to the Shias inherently for some weird, odd reason. It doesn't make any sense, right? That's another thing. If you want to go debate with someone, if you see that a person has like animosity in his heart towards Shias, you're wasting your damn time. You're talking to a brick wall over here. You know what I mean? Talk to a person with an open-minded perspective about this, and you'll get a lot further. With that being said, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma. Yeah, beautifully put, brother. It actually reminds me, you might have heard of this, I don't know if he's a journalist, his name is Sami Hamdi. Basically, it's so interesting and ridiculous because he calls out the hypocrisy of the Arab countries, he does rightfully so. A couple of years ago, he was defending Saudi Arabia when they were doing a genocide on Yemen. And interestingly enough, even today, he's criticizing Iran for supporting the Houthis in Yemen. Houthis are the ones, apart from the Palestinians themselves, they're the ones standing up most fervently against the oppression of the Palestinians, the Houthis and Hezbollah, So again, huge hypocrisy. And at the same time, he's saying that Iran wants to destabilize the legitimate governments in these countries, but you're the one criticizing these same so-called legitimate governments. He's just all over the place. I guess when you have this kind of thoughtless mentality, you're going to fall all over yourself when events transpire which just destroy your whole thinking, and that's what we're seeing unfolding before us. The dynamic in Islam amongst Muslims is changing, and the dynamic in the world is changing as well. I think for the first time, the majority of Americans, if you ask them, do you think we should send weapons to Israel? Do you think we should send aid to Israel, etc., etc.? Do you think we should? The first time, the majority of them, or at least a plurality of them, are saying no. The whole dynamic is shifting amongst Muslims and across the world. So, inshallah, with this shift continuously in the right direction, we'll see the kinds of changes that we want. As we mentioned, there are, especially amongst younger Jews, there is a huge wave that is turning against the mainstream belief that's dominated Jewish thinking for the last couple generations, which is Zionism, which is essentially Jewish supremacism. It's not Judaism, it's Jewish supremacism. Kind of like ISIS is, I guess in a way, Wahhabi supremacism. I guess it's the same kind of idea. So, inshallah, same question to you, Brother Sa'eed. What does it say when a population under genocide, under bombardment, is so united amongst themselves, whereas people that are living in comfort and safety are so divided? And do you believe it's the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Of course, everything is the will of Allah. But do you believe Allah puts people through these trials and tribulations so that they can realize what truly matters?
Thank you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Truly an insightful question. I would like to first, though, start with the dialogue example. Once I was seeing a video which was done with Oprah. I think he was a neurologist. He was holding a thread, and at the end of that thread was a piece of metal. He said to Oprah, imagine the thread is going sideways, but don't move your hand. And slowly the camera was focusing in and it started going sideways, even though she didn't move her hand, but because there is a bit of activity that can be sensed through the nerves, and the muscles moved without her wanting to.
Is it like a thread with a needle on it?
With a piece of metal on it, say like a washer or something.
All right.
A small screw, for example, anything. You can even try. He then told her, let her go front and back, and it did. Stopped going sideways, started going front and back. She didn't move her hand. And this can be done by anyone. You can even try. But just imagine. And then told her in circles, it stopped going front and back and went in circles. So this, and then he told her, every single cell in our body, of course, through the neural system, is it's like eavesdropping. It's like looking through a small hole through the door into what the brain is thinking, eavesdropping in what the brain is saying. So this can reflect even a little bit into the actions of the body. This reminded me of Imam Ali Al-Ridha when he was giving his speech to the people in the castle of Yazid, la'inullah alayh, God curse him. Yazid told the mu'adhin, do adhan, to cut the speech of the imam, so people don't know who the imam is. And when he said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, the imam said, my hair, my skin, my blood, my bones, everything in me is doing the shahada. Did the shahada. How did it do? Because his mind and everything is connected through his soul and his mind to his body. So he truly in his core does believe that. Yuwahidullah ta'ala. Now, when you want to think of, for example, a whole ummah that has a certain thought of belief, a certain mindset, yes, they are going to have some things some actions that they do that's going to show. For example, Imam Hussain alayhi salam, before leaving Medina to Karbala, he sat and he gave a khutbah, because it doesn't matter anymore whether he gives a khutbah or not. They're going to come to him. So he sat and he gave an actual legit official khutbah, and he said he is not of our Shia, he is not of our lovers, he is a liar, the one who says he follows or he loves Muawiyah or loves Yazid. He is lying. Another example, the Prophet says, did not believe in me, the Prophet of God, Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alih. The one who doesn't do wilayah for Imam Ali, he did not believe in me. That means he didn't believe in him to follow, because he is telling them to follow. He is my wazir, he is my brother. So many times he told them. He even told them, of course, Man kuntu mawlah, aliyun mawlah. So we can see, as brother Mustafa Bismi said, God bless him with this saying, that the ones who go against the Shia, no, they are not following the Imams. This is showing. Okay. So going back to Imam Al-Ridha alayhi salam, the father of Ma'mun, he had made so much trouble with the Shias, with the followers of Ahlul Bayt, with Ahlul Bayt, and especially with the people who suffered. So all those people, they loved Imam Al-Ridha alayhi salam. Their hearts were going for Imam Al-Ridha. And at that time, there was so much of them, and it was spreading the news slowly. There was no internet, but it was spreading. Just now it is spreading around the world. Which are the people who have humanity to stand against what's sinful and wrong that's been done. And here, the idea of tokenism was used. He thought he will bring Imam Al-Ridha, block him from spreading the Islam, study the situation, test the waters further, and then he would tell the people different things. He will use media. To the people who have a certain type of thinking, he will tell them that I accept Imam Al-Ridha because I promised God, I did neither. If I killed that guy, he's bad, my brother, I would bring Imam Al-Ridha to be the Khalifa. Different people, he will give them different reasons, just so that he can put the idea in people's minds. So he used different cards and different reasons. He also needed a plan to improve the image of the Abbasids amongst the people so that they stop and he doesn't have to worry about them attacking him and spend all these armies left and right by getting the most respected figure in Islam. So talk about multiple birds with one stone. With his satanic mind, he thought if he would kill Imam Al-Ridha alayhi salam, then he would tell the people, whoever died first, he will get the Khilafah. If the Imam died, God chose me to be the Khalifa, so it went back to its rightful people regardless. And he told the people, oh, he didn't tell the people I killed him. No, he did not. He told them he ate too much grapes. And the best type of grapes, quality, that would kill a human. And then he would take his son, a 6-year-old Imam Muhammad Jawad alayhi salam, trying to teach him so that he can make him on their side, so that he will also strengthen his government. But he never expected Imam Muhammad Jawad at a young age to have the knowledge of Imam As-Sadiq, his grandfather alayhi salam. His father, the complete knowledge of Imam Al-Ridha. That's what, baffled him. And that's what also allowed Islam to be spread. So he can't touch the Imam, and he's still trying, and the Imam is also doing the spreading of Islam. Imam Muhammad al-Jawad as well as Imam Ali Al-Hadi, they had this opportunity to spread Islam. So Imam Al-Ridha alayhi salam's going to Khurasan was a good thing because it spread Islam whilst he was doing his plans. Yes, 3 Imams were killed, but in this time, the Shia Islam became very lively and alive. Just like Imam Hussain alayhi salam, with his blood, he gave a sacrifice to the root of the tree of Islam, the true inheritance of Prophet Muhammad and Prophet Muhammad, prophethood. Time after time, this tree is getting a sacrifice so that the tree of truth can spread its and be known and stay alive. And thank you for the time.
Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Jazakallah khair, dear brother Sa'eed, and inshallah we can live to witness this tree grow to its full strength with the coming of our final Imam, Al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan al-Qa'im al-Mahdi, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu al-Shareef. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasten his reappearance, and inshallah may Allah give us the knowledge, the fortitude and the courage to be amongst his foremost followers. Inshallah we'll have a short question answer session from the audience members before closing, so feel free to ask And just keep in mind, none of us are scholars here, so inshallah, we'll try our best to deliver from what we know. And if there's anything that causes doubt, I encourage you to do your own research, look into it, inquire with the sheikh. And inshallah ta'ala, with that said, let's begin.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam.
I just have a quick question regarding the certain verses of the Quran where Allah curses on the liars. So if we say like we shouldn't recite those verses because that can hurt the feeling of the liar person, you know. So isn't it, if you relate this thing to the one like you guys were talking about,
Like taqiyya?
yeah, taqiyya, yeah, and tabarra especially. So if we don't do like tabarra, it shouldn't be publicly, obviously, like, you know, it can hurt the feelings of others. I do understand, but the thing is, if we don't do tabarra, so obviously with the passage of time, like people like forget about those men who did wrong to the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wassalam. So my question is like if we don't recite those verses, so that because if we feel like, oh, it can hurt the feelings of a lawyer, so how you can relate these things, like
How do we reconcile those?
Yeah, please.
Okay, no, very beautiful question. I think 100% we should read those verses. We should read Ziyarat Ashura. Tabarra is the last of the Furu' ad-Din, the branches of the religion of Islam, yet it is still one of the branches. It is still necessary for people to recognize that those who did wrong to the Ahlul Bayt are worthy of being condemned. It's required of us to condemn such people. As you mentioned, there's a difference between taking names publicly and saying things in a coded way, and that's where taqiyya comes into play, as Brother Mustafa was mentioning. You read in Ziyarat Ashura where places are more direct. For example, it invokes the name of Abu Sufyan and Muawiyah and all of these people, but in other places it's more coded. You know, you read, for example, Allahumma an awwala zalimin zalama haqqa Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa akhirata bi innahu ala dhalik. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives his la'na. And let's just be clear, la'na does not necessarily mean cursing. What it means is may Allah take his mercy away from this person. I guess it can result in a curse. Of course, if someone's deprived from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what hope do they have? But it's not directly cursing. It's not exactly the same thing. There's a bit of a nuance there. Nonetheless, what does that translate to? It means may Allah's la'na be upon those who stole the haqq of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, the first of them, awwal, wa akhiratu bi inna ala dhalik, and the last of them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as you mentioned in the Quran, Allah curses the liars. In the Quran, it also mentions a verse in Surah Al-Ahzab where Allah condemns those who annoy the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. Now, you of course know of the example of Fatima al-Zahra. Countless narrations across our schools, they mention that whoever angers Fatima al-Zahra has angered me. This is the verse of the saying of the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, accepted by all mainstream Muslims, all of the Sunni, all of the Shia pretty much. Whoever angers Fatima al-Zahra has angered me. Now this verse says whoever annoys the Holy Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will condemn him. Now imagine angering someone is worse than annoying them. And this is directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those who angered Fatima al-Zahra, will Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala look kindly upon them? And it's a question I always pose to my brothers and sisters in the other schools of Islam. It's not necessarily being direct with them, it's getting them to reshape their thinking. You know, it's not saying, oh, you follow this person, he is cursed, he is this and that. It's asking the right questions, you know. Look, your own narrations say this and Allah says this. Connect the dots, think for yourself. That's the right approach to have. And no verse of the Quran should ever be neglected.
Jazakallah khair. Do we have any other question? Oh yeah, please.
Okay, this topic is a really interesting topic about taqiyya. I've read wanted to look into this, I wanted to read every ahadith of just about all the Ahlul Bayt where they've mentioned divulging secrets, concealing faith. Every single hadith I could find, there's like hundreds of them. And then every verse in the Holy Quran in relation to taqiyya, where the Imams explain it in tafsir, right? And so what I've come to conclude is it's not about taqiyya doesn't mean don't acknowledge that these people exist. It means the whole idea is don't reveal it to people who have opposing views, which then they could oppress you and oppress other Shias as a result. The whole point of it is that you don't have to tell him what your opinion is on the first Khalif or something, but you have to have that belief in your heart and profess it in your own small community and amongst other Shias. That's what tabarra is. It doesn't mean to announce it on a microphone, or you know what I mean? That aspect, when you announce it on the microphone and it compromises the safety, this is what the Imams specifically say, they compromise the safety of the ummah, of the Shias. The Imams have said, indeed, it is as if my Shias have killed me, not by accident, by deliberately. And there's a verse in the Holy Quran that says, specifically, it says, and they slayed the prophets. And the Ahlul Bayt have explained, I swear by Allah, they didn't slay them with the knife. They slayed them with the tongue by divulging the secrets of the prophets, which led the other people who disbelieved to kill them, their own followers. And the Imams have talked about this as well. The same thing, thank you. The Muslims in Parachinar and Afghanistan who are killed, they're killed as a result, specifically as a result of other Shias on the mics doing tabarra publicly and then uploading it.
Yeah.
And the Imams have specifically said,
Brother Mustafa, just bring mic closer.
Oh, sorry. The Imams have specifically said they have not killed them by accident. I swear by Allah, they have killed them intentionally by divulging the secrets. That's why this issue is a very interesting issue, because it polarizes a lot of Muslims. I know, like in India and Pakistan is a big thing. Publicly doing tabarra. In certain places, like in Iraq, Fatimiyya is a big thing. And the essence is not to forget those elements of the religion. There's extremely essential elements of the religion. To understand the hypocrisy of the Muslims, to understand the oppositions the Imams had from amongst the Ummah is extremely essential. You got to understand when we oppose the four Khalifs, right? The three Khalifs, there are
Definitely
not the fourth. There are unique personalities. Abu Bakr is not the same as Umar. He's not the same as Uthman. They're completely unique personalities. Abu Bakr was like a pious, intellectual kind of person, and I mean that with a particular connotation. Umar was not the same person. He was very direct. He was more brash. He was more harsh. He was similar to Khalid bin Walid. And Uthman was a completely different person. They all have their own unique personality when it comes to opposition to Ali ibn Abi Talib. And they all played a unique game. The reason why Abu Bakr was the first Khalif is a very particular reason. And how the second Khalif used Abu Bakr to gain position is a very strategic position on how he used Abu Bakr's personality to get into that power. As Shias, we oppose that fake ideology, that fake piety, this pseudo-intellectualism that a lot of modern-day Muslims have, where they hide their hypocrisy behind their piety. We oppose that. Because what that ideology means is it essentially opposes the wisdom and the truth of Ahlul Bayt through these means. And by God, the same kind of personalities exist even within Shias. There are many Shias that are pseudo-intellectuals that are passively concealing their hypocrisy. In aspects, for example, a lot of Shias, they don't want to get involved in politics today. A lot of Shias, they don't want to talk about Iran, for example. They just want to talk about Muharram. A lot of people have that ideology. They conceal their hypocrisy through some fake pseudo-religious intellectualism. You can see that today. That is a degree of hypocrisy to which the Muslims back then represented. And today, Muslims represent today. So when we do tabarra, we are disassociating with those kind of people. Do you know what I'm saying? That's one aspect. It has changed, culturally it has changed over the years. In the sense it's become a pride thing. Especially countries where they are faced closely with opposition. As sort of like a self-defense, we've played that card. And it has bit us back quite heavily. But it's something to, like we said, it's something to exercise with wisdom. There's a reason why the Ahlul Bayt have said, bring people to the religion using wisdom particularly. You know what I mean? You have to be smart in how you approach these situations, because you can bring shame to the Ahlul Bayt's name by how we represent ourselves. I hope that answers the question. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Thank you. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Yes, ask the next question.
Do you want to answer that question?
No, I will, but first, before he forgets it.
No, me?
Yeah.
No, I have it in my mind, don't worry.
No, ask, it's okay.
Okay, I was going to say,
Bismillah.
what attributes and virtues can we implement from the Palestinians over here so we can strengthen our unity from the diversity that we're engaged in?
Inshallah, we'll get to that, Brother Hussein, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wisdom, yes, 100% agree with you, Brother Mustafa. So there is a healthy way and peaceful way that is logical and delicate in line with Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam's etiquette. Imam Ali alayhi salam, on the flip side, Imam Ali alayhi salam says to the believers, don't debate the Khawarij using Quran, because the Quran is like a sword that is sharp on both sides. So you can use it regarding your own background, and they can use it regarding their own deceiving background. They can also deceive and use it. So because the Quran that's just the way Quran is. Water, it's normal, is liquid, and it can go in any direction, any shape it can take. Quran can also be like that. It can take any shape of the speaker. They can deceive, they can use logic. You see, like if you put food coloring in water, it can make the water become all that same color, and you'll think that water has that color. Whereas in fact, what I'm trying to say is doubts that can be used, and humanity can accept it. They're not very, very specific. We're not going to use professors to believe. No, we have our own way. We will believe. That's why direct logic is recommended, I believe, as the brothers, inshallah, would also accept. That's what I've seen the Ahlul Bayt, and I'm saying direct logic, explanation of it. Quran is very condensed and can have many different things. And yeah, so it can be used if it carefully. Would you like to?
Ahsant, exactly, 100%. We're all on one page on this, so subhanallah. And Brother Sajjad asked an incredible question. Essentially, what can we learn from the Palestinians and their example? Now, we mentioned already the solidarity, the togetherness of the Palestinians. They're always united with one another, looking out for each other, which is something that we're missing. There's a lack of neighborly atmosphere in Australia, at least where I live, where I've lived over the years. You don't even know your neighbor. He's essentially an alien to you. And if something were to happen in these places, each person would look out for themselves, There wouldn't be any regard for the welfare of your neighbor or the person across the street, etc., etc. That's one thing you can learn. Being together, being united, looking out for your fellow man. Now, one other important area is, of course, being grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at all times. When you think about what the Palestinians are experiencing, especially if you have family members, brothers, sisters, mothers and fathers, sons and daughters, always counting your blessings, knowing that they're always going to be with you, that they're not facing the same kind of challenges of the Palestinians, that you don't have to sleep at night knowing whether you're going to wake up the next day, or whether you're going to have a father the next day, or a mother the next day, or a son, a daughter, a brother, or a sister. So being grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's something you can learn. Patience and steadfastness, knowing that you're experiencing. You look at the videos which are so powerful and heart-touching. Palestinians constantly repeating the chant, Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. Surely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sufficient for us, even when they've lost everything in their lives. Even when those 2,000-pound bombs are dropped and destroy entire city blocks where their neighbors, their family and their friends are killed, that chant reverberates, Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. And that chant is a huge threat to the enemies, to the very fabric, the core of tyranny and oppression. That's what we can learn from the Palestinians. One other point I want to bring up, because it's not all rays and sunshines when we think about this. In the past, particularly in the 1990s and the early 2000s, the Second Intifada, there was a dark period, and it's important to point this out, where the Palestinians engaged in very atrocious behaviors themselves. Suicide bombing, bus bombings of civilians in Israel. That's something, of course, I'm sure none of us would accept that. None of us would condone that or endorse that. Now, that's something they've given up. That's something we can also learn. If you have a dark past where you engaged in atrocious behavior before, give that up. Let it go. Never repeat those actions. Never target civilians deliberately. Never engage in those actions. There's always room for redemptions to change your ways. Just because the previous generation acted a certain way, they acted in error. Remember the example of the Holy Prophet, the Quraysh. Their whole society was dark and ignorant. They engaged in child burial, idolatry, forced marriages, basically unlimited polygamy and slavery, etc., etc. The generation of the Holy Prophet, there was a vast improvement. You don't necessarily, just because your ancestors or your forefathers or even fathers practice something horrific, you don't have to follow that same tradition. And targeting civilians deliberately is a great example of that. And I do pray that the Palestinians moving forward, they keep this in mind always, even if the other side engages in an egregious manner, even if they deliberately target your civilians, if they deliberately target 10,000s of your civilians, as a Muslim, as a believer, as someone who professes to follow the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, even if they target 10,000 of you, innocent civilians among you, never target a single innocent civilian amongst them. Such is the example of the Holy Prophet. That's what we can learn from the Palestinians. So inshallah ta'ala, I hope that sheds some light. Mustafa, any thoughts?
This is a very good question. What you asked about, in the light of what's going on in Palestine and the lessons that we can learn from that. Something that's come to my mind that I've been thinking about is this hadith from Imam Ali Al-Mu'mineen, where he says that understand that any good that ends up ultimately makes you end up in hell is not really good. And he says any difficulty that you endure in this life, any hardship that means that you end up going to paradise is not really bad inherently. And so when I think about people who are living in Gaza, who are being killed, and I think about my life where some comforts in my life may make me forget about God, may make me not remember my grave because I'm being distracted with amusement. Is that really good at the end of the day? And the truth is, people in Gaza, their faith is tested and strengthened every day. You see, nothing really tests your faith more than death. And I realize this, a lot of my, I was looking at my friends who go to church, and my Muslim friends and my atheist friends, and when death is brought up in the family, you can see someone's their whole outlook on life changes dramatically. Because if you don't really believe in God, if this is all just a show, and you really, when death approaches you, and death is really the end, right? If you don't believe in the hereafter, you don't really believe in God, it's just all rituals and, just come here for the Halim or something, then at the end of the day, when death approaches you, you shatter, you break, dude. A lot of people experience great levels of depression and they can't overcome the idea of losing a loved one because they don't believe that person is going anywhere after death. Death is really the end. So when you are confronted by death, it puts you on a fork road where you either double down on your faith and you open your eyes to a new perspective about life after death, or it cripples you and you become like this sort of like cynical kind of nihilistic kind of person. So when you are faced with those sort of situations, it challenges your faith. Living in the West, we're not challenged by that. You know what I mean? We're not, death is such a like prolonged idea that we try to distract ourselves with amusements along the way. In the olden days, death was so common. At the time of Imam Ali Al-Ridha, there's always wars and there's always their faith was strong. If you notice, a lot of people believed in something, even if they were polytheists. Nowadays, if you look at the census in Australia, majority of people are atheists. People are worrying about the rise of Islam. Everyone's an atheist. People don't need to believe in God because they've created their own God on this world. It's only when your hope is tested that you double down in faith. If you look at living, is it better to live in Australia or in Iran or a Muslim country? A lot of people think living in a Muslim country is better. What I found is like a lot of my friends from Muslim countries, as soon as they come here, they cannot wait to leave the religion. You notice that? When no eyes are watching them. I'm talking about people who their parents are back at home and they're the only one here as a student. 9 times out of 10, they're bouncing from the religion, bro. The reason why is when your faith is not really tested, you will leave at the drop of a hat. Your faith has to be like really, really tested. Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam has said, our Shia are like gold. God puts them through like the furnace. He puts them through immense heat and suffering and tribulations to make sure that they're shining without any purification, any impurities at the end. And so if you and I, we claim to be the Shia of Ali ibn Abi Talib, God will put you through immense hell, dude, on this earth, to make sure he weeds you out. Are you really about that life? God will ask you that question. You know what I mean? I don't think I can survive that. The kind of tribulations the Shias survived at the time of the Ahlul Bayt is a whole different thing. That's the kind of mindset we have to say if we want to look at the suffering that these people go through. Are we ready for that kind of tribulation to wear that banner of Shia of Ali? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد أحسنتم.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and thank you, brother, for asking an insightful question. Jazakallah khaira. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As time passes, we see how carbon can change shape. From coal is made of carbon, and the same elements also form diamond. As time passes with pressure, diamond is formed. It is like the believers become believers, as the Quran says, all believers believe. So it seems like it's like people focus more on what they already believe in. You know, when you see a child, you will think, does that child pray to God as much a very, say, elder man or an adult? Maybe his prayer is more accepted. That child has more clarity. He knows one thing and he knows he has to ask God or do salawat or do tasbih. He will do it purely. Whereas an old person, an adult like me, he might know more, but his lid's clear. It's like having a book with a lot of pages which are unrelated or wrong. So it makes it less clear. That's why crying in a dua would get your heart to be more cleaner. It will cause more clarity. It's like you have a window and you have a thin window, a strong window. But which one is more transparent? Which one lets you see more? So it seems like with difficult times, we focus more on what we know, which is true, and we know deeply it works, we know. And the Quran also gives examples. When you go, even Imam Sadiq alayhi salam points to this. A man came and asked the Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, tell me about God. Who's God? I want to know about God. The Imam asked him, and this also is in the Quran related, have you ever gone in a ship? Have you ever sailed? He told him, yes. He told him, well, did the ship ever wanted to, sink? Was there a hardship? And he told him, yes, I remember that. He told him, what did you think about? He thought about my other things. I have to get my, I have to, help myself so I can survive. And he told him, what else did you think of? He told him, that's when I thought about a deep down feeling. I have a God. He asked God. He told him that's God. So it seems like when we go through hardship, we suddenly can focus on what's really true and our truest core feelings. So it's like people come and tell someone, a man, you have a treasure in your house. You'll be rich. It's in that house. They tell him in the place. He says, I have doubts. I don't think so. That's Ahlul Bayt. People tell the Sunnis, tell the Wahhabis, tell the world, we have a treasure. You have a treasure. Look for it. They have doubts. They don't even want to believe there is a treasure. That's why we are living in a time of darkness, and we're poor of knowledge, we're living in dark times right now. One of the darkest and most difficult times. We have internet and it's just over knowledge. For example, the example of cigarette smoking, it took 60 years to show them. In the first 1 year, we were able to show that, the scientists were able to show the rats were caused cancer immediately when they got droplets of the tobacco smoke. It took them 6 years to get enough evidence because there is so much over information. They said broccoli causes cancer, pig causes cancer, so many things, the sun causes cancer, and they increase it. So yes, it seems like we have so much and we need to focus down, and with pressure, I believe people will go to their senses. We hear many times people saying, Ya laytana kunna ma'akum, to Imam Hussain alayhi salam. I wish I was with you. Well, you can be with him now. Go read about Ahlul Bayt. They are a treasure. Go see how they speak, how they stay silent, how they walk, how they eat. The etiquette Sayyid Hussain is trying to let us open an eye on. Last thing I would like to add, this is unrelated. Some people think this life is a consciousness. It's an experiment of aliens. Is it like something you go inside a place and they put something on your mind so that you can live a life? Well, part of being God is complete and God knows everything and God doesn't need experiments. So this life is the ultimate life test. We can experiment in this life, but at the end we have to find it. We have a responsibility and we're given time to find that God is perfect and this is a real life test and we better do our best. Thank you for listening. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Just want to say I love the example Brother Sa'eed gave. The coal over millennia, thousands of years of transformation. Ultimately, they're both come from the same element. It's carbon based. Through all of those millennia, it becomes diamonds. Diamond, very same base, carbon based. And it links to what Brother Mustafa was saying. When your faith is truly tested, it's pressed, that's when you can truly come out the victor, So inshallah ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us tests, but He gives us tests that we can pass through, and it makes us stronger little by little. Inshallah, with that, we'll pass on to we'll just do one final question, inshallah. Anyone?
No, I'm good, thank you.
All good, all good. Inshallah ta'ala, with that, we conclude for tonight. Any questions, any thoughts? All right, inshallah, just who's going to recite? Oh, of course, yeah, that's a given. All right, inshallah ta'ala, we conclude this section of the program, the panel discussion. Just want to let everyone know, my dear brother Mustafa is going to be traveling overseas for work. I think for how many? 1 year?
Yeah, about a year.
A year. So in London, I think?
June, yeah.
London in June. So inshallah, we pray for his success, wish him all the best. And inshallah, we also, inshallah, when he does return, of course, he's most welcome here as always. It's always a pleasure to have you, dear brother. And Jazakallah khair, brother Sa'eed also. Inshallah ta'ala, we conclude this segment. And to wrap it up, I'd like to first invite brother Jahangir to recite Manqabat for the love of our beloved 8th Imam Ali ibn Musa Al-Ridha. Please welcome him with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
بڑے دیگر صلوات. المدد مولا رضا 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 المدد مولا رضا. روز و شب شام و سحر روز و شب شام و سحر یہ وظیفہ ہے میرا. المدد مولا رضا المدد مولا رضا المدد مولا رضا المدد مولا رضا. گردش ایام میں گھر کر میں بالکل چور تھا. گردش ایام میں گھر کر میں بالکل چور تھا. زندگی سے دور اپنے آپ سے بھی دور تھا. اس گھڑی مجھ کو تیرے اس گھڑی مجھ کو تیرے در کا سہارا مل گیا. المدد مولا رضا المدد مولا رضا المدد مولا رضا المدد مولا رضا. کون ہے دل کی مرادیں جو یہاں پاتا نہیں. آپ کے در سے کوئی بھی خالی ہاتھ آتا نہیں. ہم کو در سے آپ کے ہم کو در سے آپ کے اوقات سے زیادہ ملا. المدد مولا رضا المدد مولا رضا المدد مولا رضا المدد مولا رضا. خلق میں مشہور ہے مشکل کشائی آپ کی. کر رہے ہیں جان و دل مدحت سرائی آپ کی. دور ہو مشکل ہماری دور ہو مشکل ہماری اے میرے مشکل کشا. المدد مولا رضا المدد مولا رضا المدد مولا رضا المدد مولا رضا. جو طبیبوں کی نظر میں تھا مریض لا علاج. دے رہی تھی موت کو بھی زندگی جس کی خراج. وہ مریض لا دوا وہ مریض لا دوا در پر تیرے اچھا ہوا. المدد مولا رضا المدد مولا رضا المدد مولا رضا المدد مولا رضا. مل نہیں سکتی میرے مولا تیری کوئی مثال. جان احمد روح حیدر فاطمہ زہرا کے لال. اے شہنشاہ خراساں اے شہنشاہ خراساں ابن شاہ کربلا. المدد مولا رضا المدد مولا رضا المدد مولا رضا المدد مولا رضا. وہ شہ والا کے ماتم دار جو بیمار ہیں
हर घड़ी जो इश्क अहले बैत से सरशार हैं, सैयदे सजाद के, सैयदे सजाद के सदके में वो पाएं शिफा। अल-मदद मौला रिज़ा, अल-मदद मौला रिज़ा, अल-मदद मौला रज़ा, अल-मदद मौला रज़ा। डूबती कश्ती को तूफान में किनारा मिल गया, गम के मारे बेसहारों को सहारा मिल गया। मीर ने बेसाख्ता, मीर ने बेसाख्ता रोते हुए जिस दम कहा, अल-मदद मौला रज़ा, 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 अल-मदद मौला रज़ा। सलावत। मुतवज्जह ज़ियारत। अस्सलामु अलैका या रसूल अल्लाह, अस्सलामु अलैका या नबी अल्लाह, अस्सलामु अलैका या हबीब अल्लाह, अस्सलामु अलैका या मुहम्मद इब्न अब्दुल्लाह, अस्सलामु अलैका या सिफ़त अल्लाह, अस्सलामु अलैका या अमीन अल्लाह, अस्सलामु अलैका व रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकात, अस्सलामु अलैका या अबा अब्दुल्लाह, अस्सलामु अलैका या इब्ना रसूलिल्लाह, अस्सलामु अलैका या इब्ना अमीरुल मुमिनीन व इब्ना सय्यदुल वसीजीन, अस्सलामु अलैका या इब्ना फातिमतुज़ ज़हरा सय्यदत निसाइल आलमीन, अस्सलामु अलैका या मौलाया व अला अंसारिकल मुस्तशहीदीन मअका जमीअन व रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकात, अस्सलामु अलैका या गरीबल गुरबा, अस्सलामु अलैका या मुईनुज़ ज़ुअफ़ा वल फ़ुक़रा, अस्सलामु अलैका या मुगीथ अश-शियअती वज़-ज़वारी फ़ी यौमिल जज़ा, अस्सलामु अलैका या अनीसन नुफ़ूस, अस्सलामु अलैका अय्युहल मदफ़ून बिअर्ज़ि तूस, अस्सुल्तान अबुल हसन अली इब्न मूसा ar-रज़ा ar-राज़ि बिल क़द्रि वल क़ज़ा व रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकात, अस्सलामु अलैका या साहिबल अस्र वज़्ज़मान, अल-अमान अल-अमान अल-अमान, अस्सलामु अलैका या खलीफ़तुर रहमान, अस्सलामु अलैका या इमामुल इंसी वल जान, अस्सलामु अलैका या शरीकल कुरआन, अस्सलामु अलैका या क़ामिल कुफ्र व तुग़यान, अअज्जलल्लाहु तआला फरजक व सहलल्लाहु तआला मखरजक व ज़हूरक व रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकात। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद व आलि मुहम्मद व अज्जिल